Hello and welcome back to the Food Freedom Series. I am here with Marisa Moon, who is a level 2 certified primal health and intermittent fasting coach. She helps people put an end to dieting, and she's also the host of the podcast, The Foundation of Wellness. So when we connected about a month and a half ago or so to talk about this idea for food freedom, we realized that we had pretty similar starts to how we came in to do the work that we're doing, how we became fascinated with creating freedom around food and helping others do that. So Marisa, welcome. I'm super excited to have you here. And I think the audience would love to know, I would love to know a little bit more about your journey with food and body image and how that has led to you doing the work that you're doing.
Yeah, well, it's really a pleasure to be here. I love talking about anything that really moves us to being a healthier, happier version of ourselves. And on the path to better health, a lot of us discover that there's so much more to it than, what we always believed it would be just a simple fix. We're one diet away from making all of our dreams come true. And we're just complex creatures, and it's a complex world we live in. And I found my way here through my own struggles. I was just probably my late 20s, and I had all these embarrassing digestive issues, the kind you don't want to talk to anyone about. And you're like, this can't be normal. And I was like, I got to find answers. This is just not okay. And my now husband was my boyfriend at the time, and he's a physician, and I didn't even tell him for a while because it was like literally embarrassing, but he was probably like, why doesn't you want to sit by me today? And like, I didn't want him to know, but eventually I was desperate enough, and I was like, what is going on with my digestion? And he was like, I really don't know. You're probably going to have to go see a doctor or something. And I started listening to podcasts about nutrition because that's already kind of like where I turned when I wanted to learn a little more about my body at the time, because I was into fitness and other things that really had to do with my health. And I discovered that people are very prone to food sensitivities these days, things I did not even consider because I was the kind of person who would eat anything, like anything. Food was and is a big part of my identity and my life. And to think that I had to give up gluten was like earth shattering. I'm Italian, and we eat lots of food, bread, pasta, everything, and it's the best. And it's like, wait a second, how is my life going to go on if I can't eat this food? And I say can't because in my case, it was really tearing up my gut so bad that even when I made exceptions, I would be like sleeping on the floor in the bathroom. And so even on my honeymoon, ladies and gentlemen. And so I definitely went through the ins and outs and roller coaster ride of figuring out like what I really want for my body and how my relationship with food can be different if this is now the path that I'm going to take. And in the beginning, it was I was like, I'm not going to tell anybody that I'm going gluten free. This was 8 or so years ago. Like nobody was really talking about that, and I just kept it to myself. I mean, Eric's the only one who knew. And then I realized the more and more I read about what's going on, like with our food system today, I just became so passionate about nutrition, especially in the perspective of ancestral health. And ancestral health just takes into consideration all of the diet and lifestyle factors and choices that influenced health before so many modern influences like we have today in our food system or our farming methods, our environment, etc. And I think that that wisdom is there for a reason, and it's kind of lost today. It's not passed on generation to generation. Like we all just kind of hop to the next best flashiest thing on our social media feed, and there's no real like inner knowing that I find in ancestral health. And it kind of helps to just simplify and like bring together what we instinctively should understand about ourselves and our food and the way that it makes us feel. And to me, that's where I began to find a new passion. So it wasn't only an interest in nutrition anymore. It was like this whole, like, I have a responsibility here. Like, I need to tell people about this. And soon it I was a food blogger at mylongevitykitchen.com because I thought, well, there must be other people that might have to give up gluten or give up dairy and they don't want to, they still want delicious food, or maybe they want to cook healthier food and they want to learn what I'm learning. And so I began blogging there, and that on its own just kind of took on its own identity. It was like, whoa, who am I now? Am I like this healthy, like nutrition person? Like what's going on here? You know, this was before I even considered becoming a health coach. And slowly but surely over time, I realized it's too easy to just go like all in, like 100%. I am a primal health coach and I would never touch dairy or gluten with a 10-foot pole. And I'm better than you because I don't eat these foods. We don't actually tell ourselves we're better than them, but it's very righteous thinking and behavior that comes from dietary dogma. And it's this idea that, you know, if less is better, then none is probably the best. And it's like this separation from you and everyone else. And it puts you on a different platform that can get very lonely. It can frustrate the other people in your life and in your relationships. And it forces you to stop and think of what really matters. And, you know, that's in a very general description, you know, the path I kind of took to get to now coaching people to move past dieting, to find a flexible relationship with food, health, your body, and yourself and your mind that fits with your circumstances right now, your needs right now, the way that you feel right now. Like, how can our relationship with food not ebb and flow with the complexities of our life? It has to
Yeah.
do that, or we'll drive ourselves crazy.
Yeah. Wow. You're saying so many incredible things where I'm like, wow, there's just so many avenues that we could go with. And I think to what you're saying is like, I experienced that in myself too, where I was like, I have to eat this way. And then I started to feel such separation from people who could eat things I couldn't eat at one point when I had to be, you know, like with you cutting out gluten and the different things that I had to cut out. And then even when I didn't have to eat that way, I noticed myself judging others or being actually just like resentful that I couldn't eat what they were eating. So it was this constant like, oh, well, poor me, or I wish I could, or comparison too. And yeah, and I think that especially in that season, I just was so disconnected from the fact that like the way that we eat will have to change because everything in life changes. And yet it's so fascinating how easy it is to become so fixated with food. It's like, okay, so other things can kind of change, but like the way that I eat can't at all. And so I'm wondering too, you know, with this, with your mention of the fad diets, what we see is like there's this popular thing happening now, and there's that popular thing happening now. And I think that more than ever, because didn't have that exposure, it seems really confusing. And if I tap into that, it's like, wow, it to your point, we're not connected to this ancestral wisdom or like thinking about being connected to the earth. So is that something that you work with your clients on just like tapping into more of their own awareness through the lens of ancestral health? And how do you go about that?
Yeah, I mean, just to kind of give everyone a little direction, there's some really incredible thought leaders in the world of nutrition today. And you know that they're incredible because they are looking for the common thread through all of the diets, through all of this, you know, dogma really is what it is. Why is the paleo camp and the vegan camp so hateful towards each other when the foundations of both diets are based on eating foods from the earth that we were meant to be eating? And to me, that is what I get from ancestral health. I get this final like knowing that I feel should be instinctively like true to me, but I don't have that. I don't feel like I was really born with that. I'm more like a novelty seeker. I'm like, oh, my friend just did this diet, so that's what I should try. And like, oh, I just heard about this. Like, even if you're not unhappy with your body or your health, you might just want to try it because it's trending and like it's so attractive because everybody's talking about it. And then you don't even stop to think for a moment what you really want and what how your life will be impacted from those decisions and why you're doing it to begin with. And so when I work with clients, they may come to me saying, I want to do intermittent fasting because they see that I live my life, with intermittent fasting as a regular part of it. And I love teaching it. But I'm not like, okay, yeah, let's do it. If it's not the right time in their life, or the things that they've explained to me are motivating them, don't line up well with intermittent fasting at this time, or the experiences they had in the past are giving us hints that perhaps that's not the best path at this time, it's my responsibility to tell them, I'm with you 100% of the way, no matter what you choose, but let's imagine this actually happening and what that might look like so we can be sure we're making the right decision. And I think that's the case with almost any confusion that you have around dieting. There needs to be some like home base for you. Like I said, that's, why I turned to ancestral health. There needs to be like, a lot of people feel settled when they think about the Mediterranean diet, for instance, because at least we get the medical field and the conventional organizations all agreeing that that's generally a good template for a diet. And it also has many of the principles of a plant-based diet and many of the principles of an ancestral health diet. So it's like we see a lot of common thread there. And that to many people is comforting, because it's like we can finally tune out all of the noise and just get down to the basics. Where did it come from? Did it grow out of the earth? How much has it been manipulated? And how do I feel when I eat it? What do I know about this food? Is it meant to be food? I think one of the underlying problems regarding all of our confusion is because we live in such a fast-paced food manufacturing era. And we are being controlled by the foods and things that are in our immediate environment and so easily accessible today, that it just makes it very difficult to listen to what you really want, or to consider for a moment what you really want. It's like constantly being tempted by, if you were in Las Vegas and everywhere you turn, you want to spend money at the gambling table, and you want to go to a nightclub until the sun comes up, and you want, like, the temptation is everywhere when you're in Vegas, but we are living with that every waking moment in our modern lives, because we have every shelf stable snack of our dreams with everything that we like crave when we're sad, when we're bored, when we're, with certain family members. It's like, you can just get, a cheesecake at the drop of a hat. You know how much work goes into making a cheesecake from scratch? Like these kinds of things, a loaf of bread that's stable on the shelf that can last for weeks at a time. Like that's not a normal part of the human diet. We should have to be harvesting seeds and grinding them into flour and fermenting the dough and then baking it. And it's this whole labor of love that like really you wouldn't take for granted. You wouldn't be like, I'm just going to have this every waking moment of every waking day. And it wouldn't sit on the shelf like that. It's just the modern food system has really set us up to be addicted to access to food, eating the food, and buying the food. And so it's kind of like this whole constant reminder of I'm not in control. And that is a crappy feeling. It's like you blame yourself when really you're not the one who's at fault. Like, unless you pack up and go camping in the middle of the woods where there's not a store for another 30 miles, you've got something tempting every which way you turn.
Wow, that's really powerful. I think about like I hear a lot with people saying like, I just wish I had more self-control, and then like it becomes such a spiral of like self-criticism and like shame and judgment. And to your point, to just say like it's not a lack of control. Like there's just like if you put yourself in Las Vegas, at some point your finger is gonna hit some machine, or it's gonna happen. And to your point, like we have such access. And so I'm thinking about too what you said, this labor of love with creating, like if you really thought about what it took to create a cheesecake or that loaf of bread or a meal from scratch, like I'm wondering if you feel or believe or see the impact of, if someone's having a challenging relationship with with food, or understanding like what is for me. I just feel like I don't really know and hasn't tapped into that. Do you feel that even just setting the intention to start to prepare some of those favorite foods without even, changing what they're eating could have an impact on their life and on their relationship to food and on how they start to eat?
I mean, absolutely. I think that, for instance, it was what, like the 50s, everybody in the household knew how to cut up an entire chicken. So even if the chicken still had the head on, they could chop the head off. Like now people are probably like, oh my God, I can't believe she just said that, I'm gonna throw up. And like, we're very out of touch with like where our food comes from, what it would be like to be the farmer growing the food. And it's very recent that this has happened to us. And that's why we are more confused and obsessed with dieting than ever before. And it's because we don't have that inner knowing or this connection with food as a part of our existence in every way. I mean, it is a privilege to have as many options as we have now, but it is also, a challenge because we can separate ourselves from the food system and just snap our fingers and get something delivered in the middle of the night, or we can have a life where we never ever have to cook ever. And so for some of my clients, I don't even try to get them to cook because they don't want to. And I hope that by the end of us working together, they'll want to. But the most important thing is to really imagine in their circumstances what is contributing the most to their unhappiness or lack of fulfillment or frustration and lack of self-awareness. Because if they want to be healthier and they want to just feel better and have more energy, and all they're talking to me about is their diet, but I realize they don't prioritize sleep whatsoever, or they have a really toxic relationship at home that they don't want to talk about or deal with. Those are two things that are impeding on their chances towards this self-growth and happiness, and far more greater than their relationship with food. The food thing is one of the most important things. I can't even deny that, but I don't think that we are truly ready to like address or untangle our relationship with food until we are ready to be with ourselves and do the deeper inner work. It's like we need to be with our own thoughts, comfortable with our own thoughts, facing our emotions and naming them, recognizing that a lot of our food behavior is attached to emotions. And it can be a lack of emotions. It can be, a lack of stimulation, motivation, or interest in your life or your work or whatever you're doing. And, for some of us, the only way to experience self-control is to be obsessive about our diet. Like when I first got into all this stuff, I was like, oh my gosh, like I have to be paleo. I have to be, you can't have this and you can't have that and you can't have that. And like, I can't have tortilla chips at a Mexican restaurant because they're fried in toxic fats and I'm going to get cancer and I'm going to die. And so everything was like this whole huge, like end all be all, like, I can't believe they're eating that, like in the very beginning, because that's how I shamed myself. And so I was therefore thinking like, wow, I can't believe that they're eating that. And I used that to justify my own insanity. And soon I realized, thanks to my husband probably, that I was really losing a part of myself that I loved. And that's that carefree, loving foodie who just will eat anything, and food is just a way of life and it's a part of my joy. And how could I be that but still be someone who cares about nutrition and health and can't have gluten? Well, I soon realized I can absolutely be both. And it's just this re-identification process I had to go through. What do I miss? What do I want to keep? What's most valuable to me? What aligns with my new principles? And how can I make that into a version of me who also lives up to the vision that I have for myself and for my health?
Does that feel like the pivotal moment for you when you started to like create this greater freedom with food? It sounds like when you integrated like, this isn't who I want to be, this doesn't feel true to who I am. And then, okay, this is who I know myself to be, and this is what I love about myself. And now how can I take what I've been learning, take what I've experienced and start to find the middle path. It almost feels like the middle path, right? With like the extremes, because I found myself doing that too. Like, wow, so far out there, and was so obsessive and so harsh on myself and others. And then it's like when you start to remember, like, who am I and who do I want to be? And then we find that middle path to walk down. It sounds to me like that was a big moment in your journey. Do you agree? And how was
Yeah, it
that?
was. I mean, and I wish I could like pinpoint it to one moment, but it was something I had to kind of have a few negative experiences to wake me up. You know, I had to have a few uncomfortable dinners with family or friends who I could tell were a little annoyed with me or a lot annoyed with me. And and you carry that with you. Like you guilt yourself because it's not true to who you are. That wasn't true to who I was. And it wasn't easy for me to see that because I was passionate. When you are driven by something that's so strong, you feel like there's a motor behind you. It's so hard to see the impact it's going to have on others or even on your relationship with yourself. And for me, I needed to have 3, 4, 5 years of that, wishy-washy perfectionism before I realized that I don't want to be that person. I really don't want to be that coach. I don't want to be that person. I don't want to be that blogger. And, along the way, I was also doing intermittent fasting, and I did not follow any of the rules because with intermittent fasting, it felt far too intimidating to worry about all of the structure and the rules. And I'm not a very regimented, ritualistic person. Like, I have ADD, and I'm, always adapting and learning like how I can make that work for me in my day-to-day life. And same goes with the intermittent fasting. When I took that on, I was like, I am not going to be watching the clock and, writing down the time and doing it every single day at the same time. I don't even have a regular work routine. Like, that doesn't work for me. And then I realized, oh my God, there are so many benefits to that. Like, not only psychologically, so you don't have to freaking obsess over this diet now, but it makes so much sense because the reason intermittent fasting works is because the human body was designed to go without food for short periods of time, and adapt to make you stronger, smarter, and more healthy. And so now we have food all the time, and we never stop eating from the moment we wake up to the moment we go to sleep, that it makes sense to give your digestive system a break and give your body a break. But does it make sense to do that at the exact same time every single day and do it because this book told you that you got to do this method of intermittent fasting and it has to be exactly like this? No, it didn't make any sense to me. And I'm glad that I finally had the confidence to share that, because at first you're like, people are going to think I'm crazy, or, I'm not a good enough coach if I don't have a strict program or whatever. And then I realized, like, no, people need this. Like, I needed it and it works for me. I've been fasting for like 6 years now, every single day, willingly, and when I say every single day, I don't mean literally every single day. I mean, like, most days of my life, that's what I naturally choose to do and do without effort. And many days, like, especially around my period, ladies, I am like, I don't care about fasting right now. Like, please, I do not care about fasting right now. And you just have to ebb and flow with your life to make any kind of relationship with food make sense for you at this time. So I hope that, in my coaching now, and I hear it often, it's very rewarding. This is a new chapter for me. And my clients are now saying, like, I thought that, you were going to give me like this blah, 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 what to do. And you're different than anyone I ever worked with. And I'm like, yeah, if you're patient with me, this will repay you for the rest of your life. But we can't do it fast. If we want to do it fast, then we go back to all the rules. We go back to all of the self-judgment and wondering if you're doing things right or not. But if instead we take time to peel back the layers, experiment, and kind of notice your own tendencies and patterns and how things make you feel before and after. And then we can start to shape this more mindfully and intentionally to make sense for exactly the kind of life that you want and deserve.
I love that you brought that in, the experimental. That's something that I studied a lot with the program that I did, and I just knew for myself, like, that was one of the most transformational moments, to take it from, like, instead of taking these dogmatic things or taking this book as like scripture for like how I was supposed to eat or what I was supposed to eat, because I was actually so like, yes, my body wasn't working. My digestion was completely broken down. Like it was a whole mess. But what I was doing on top of that was like then looking to external sources, and they are valuable. There's so much amazing information out there, but I was making that the answer, and meaning the capital THE, and not listening to my body. So this experimental thing allows us to then say, okay, this seems really interesting. I feel really drawn to this. Let me start to explore and experiment with how I feel. Does it work for my body? Am I more tired? Do I have more energy? How's my digestion? Um, how is my mood? How am I sleeping as a result? And just in general, like, does this feel good? And I think if we haven't even asked ourselves the question ever of like, does this feel good? How does this feel? What's happening? It's so easy to go out and look for the answers, but then it like further disconnects us from
Mm-hmm.
getting to that place of awareness. So yeah, I feel like that's such a huge takeaway for the audience is this permission, and actually like we're rooting for you if you're like experimenting and starting to get curious and having a little bit more of that. It's almost like children, right? Like because they are so connected and they're like willing to try sometimes new things, they sometimes just know like, not for me. And they
Yeah.
can own that, or like, yeah, that's for me. And if I wonder if we could all give ourselves a little bit more permission to like not have to figure it out, and not have to have it happen so fast, um, or not have to have an arrival point with the answer. What we would see in everyone's really peace of mind first when it comes to food, and then overall health. So I love that you brought that up, because I think that when I'm thinking about, this topic of how can we create freedom around food, I think part of that is this experimental piece.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and
Yeah.
everything that you're talking about and I was alluding to is you, if we have a goal, that's great and everything. And often that's what drives us. But if you are only doing something for the destination, then you will never appreciate the process or experience life in the process. And it always feels like a disappointment because you are attached to the outcome. And so this process of self-discovery is like something so many of us are missing today. We want to escape from ourselves. We want to distract ourselves from ourselves. We want to drown out the voice in our head. It's not going to go away. All of that stuff inside of you has to go somewhere. And some people are able to channel that through like exercise or art, or, like the energy really has to go somewhere. But if we don't also stop to reflect, like I have a lot of clients who resist these practices, but I really believe that you can't make that long lasting change or realize this vision of your healthier, happier self without reflection and planning. And that takes very small effort, but lots of intention. Like you have to be able to say, you know, every day before I close my laptop, I'm going to write down 2 things I want to remember next time, or 1 thing I want to acknowledge and 1 I might want to do differently. Or you might have just a notebook next to your bed that just keeps track of patterns that you're noticing in the way that you feel or the way that you think, or something you want to dig deeper on at a future date, or something you'd like to, find a different strategy for, because you realize, okay, I keep trying to go to sleep early, but I can't make myself turn off the Netflix because it automatically plays the next episode every time. And so you're like, okay, maybe I need a different strategy. But if you just keep it up here and you never get it out, it's just another burden. It's just another thing that you wish would go away. And how can you expect to make these, significant improvements in your life experience if you're not willing to really dig deep and get to know yourself and understand like the complexity of what got you here? There's just so much to our stories and our living experience that we are just endlessly rewarded the more we try to get to know ourselves.
Mm. Wow, that's powerful. So if the audience here, if they're coming and they're like, okay, I want like 2, 3 tangible things that I can start doing to start to feel greater peace with food. And I think that this, we haven't talked much about body or body image, but I think that the same thing can apply. I start to see, and I think we talked about this too, prior to this interview, but just like how much our relationship to food mirrors other parts of our lives. And so I feel like body image can do the same thing. So for people who are like hungry for those like tangible things that they can walk away with, would you say one of them is to just start to really be self-reflective, and instead of having in the mind, because the mind can be a
Mhm.
crazy place when we just keep it in there, it just like spins out, right? Is that putting it in a journal and starting to just
Yes.
put pen to paper?
Yeah, and however that looks for you, like there are lots of ways that you can make that happen. It can be like in your daily planner or something you're already using. It can be voice memos that you send yourself, an email that you send yourself at the end of the day. It can be a part of your Trello board or whatever your work like management system is. Like you can integrate it with something you're already doing so it doesn't feel like another thing. But just making it really easy and impossible to ignore, like a notepad next to your coffee machine. That would be like every time you get your cup of coffee, you sit down for a minute and you reflect on something that you learned yesterday, or you want to vent about something you're worried about, because we are sometimes just with ourselves far too often today. And if the only way you're with yourself is in your head, you're not even giving yourself like the acknowledgement you would give to a friend or a coworker or anyone else in your life. And I feel like by writing it down, and some people actually like to say it out loud, and I think that's great because there's something that happens and shifts in the brain when it hears it out loud. And so, I have people, clients, like stop and say, do I want to eat this right now? And if so, why? And they announce it out loud, because then you are truly awake to the choice that you're making and you are accepting it, or you're choosing something else. And besides the moment of like daily, or I mean, daily really should be reflection when you're in this like true healing and self-discovery phase. Like if there's something that's really out of alignment with you right now, there's really no reason not to, accept that you haven't found the way that feels right to you. Like you got to get pen to paper or your voice to enunciate, like articulate the things that you're going through. And so you can notice patterns. It's so hard to do on your own, but you get better and better at it with the practice. And I think if I need to give something that's, just as concrete, it would be that we really can't escape today the need for being more mindful and comfortable in silence. And so I encourage everyone, if you're not already practicing any meditation or mindfulness, and even if you hate it, trust me, that was me. And I have lots of clients like that too. I really feel like the more we hate it, the more that means we need it. And so I challenge you to just do 1 minute a day, and just 1 minute. And if you're uncomfortable with silence, there are a bajillion free meditation apps that have beautiful background music you can play, or someone can even guide you through it. And no matter how cheesy it seems or how like little you connect with this, it will make you stronger to stand up to your own thoughts, to recognize the voice in your head, to begin to associate the way that your thoughts affect your feelings and your relationship with food. Because not until you really have that self-awareness can you stop and think of what you want in the moment when you are going for, an acutely rewarding thing like a snack. And if that's not what you really want and you really regret it afterwards, how do you change that? You have to become more self-aware. You have to be able to, like, mindfulness is really being aware of the voice that is, driving you or talking to you. And without that, without being comfortable with that voice, we are just like, who's living our life for us? We're not living it for ourselves.
Hmm. Those are really awesome tangible things. And I think for like any part of life where we feel challenged, like yes, the topic here we're talking about food, but like for anything, if our job isn't working, our relationship isn't working, truly, this is why I'm so passionate about this kind of topic, where it's not like we're talking about, we could talk about what the items are on the primal list or the ancestral list, but instead, like, we're going into this like root of the seed for just like greater awareness and fulfillment, or just connection in general for any part of life. So I'm super grateful that we've been able to have this conversation. And I think the audience is walking away with a lot. I know I am. I'm like, yeah. And I noticed that, like, oh, I do talk to myself out loud quite a bit, but like, could I talk some things out loud a little bit more instead of keeping them in my head, so I can shed light on them and start to see, like, is this thought pattern, is this tendency working for me, or is it creating patterns in my life that I'm actually finding myself feeling unhappy about and frustrated with. And yeah, I'm just really inspired by that. So thank you so
Cool.
much. Yeah.
Mhm.
And I know that you have an offering that you'd like to share with the audience that we're going to plug into the email as well, so that everyone has access to it. But I thought I would let you share what that is before we wrap
Oh,
up.
yeah. Well, I really love working one-on-one with people as a health coach. And primarily, a health coach is a behavior change expert. And you can kind of get a feel now for what we were talking about here, that, you know, you might be surprised you're not coming in to work with a health coach to be told what to do. It's really someone guiding you, being a health advocate, and helping you become more self-aware so that you can achieve your goals. And I invite anyone listening today, if you are interested in getting to know more about me and then sharing what your current struggles and goals are regarding your health, then you should hop on a call with me. It's called a strategy call. And that's just a brief 30-minute call where it's like a consultation kind of, but it's so that I can learn from you and we know if we're a good match, because I'm not the coach for everyone. And you and I both have to feel like we're a good match before we decide if we should work together. So you can go to marisamoon.com/consultation and just pick a date on my calendar.
Awesome. Thank you. I'll head
Absolutely.
over there now too. No, just kidding. So thank you, Marisa. It was really, really incredible to just connect to you this way, and to see your passion come through, and just all of your experience and your own journey and your expertise on this is definitely really valuable. So thank you for that abundance
Oh,
of
thank you. I mean,
just
you brought it out in me, because I've been on a lot of similar type of presentations without ever getting into these topics. So you're doing some amazing work, and thank you for, bringing this out of me.
thank you.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you so much, everyone, for tuning in, and we'll see you for the next one.